Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are wrestling with something huge. A force that's both maybe the most powerful tool in modern business and also its greatest source of systemic risk, artificial intelligence.
That duality is precisely it. It's what jumps out from our sources. Our mission today isn't just, celebrating AI's power, the efficiency, the speed, how it can boost security. It's really about zeroing in on those hidden fault lines. Think of it like this amazing cybersecurity shield that could also be, well, a legal and ethical time bomb.
Right, so we're distilling the core challenges, the things businesses and honestly individuals like you face right now. Everything from, say, bias baked into decisions all the way to the totally shifting landscape of IP law. You really can't use AI effectively if you're blind to these traps. So maybe we should start where the stakes feel highest, that AI arms race in cybersecurity. Yeah, this is a conflict happening right now in real time. AI isn't just a tool for the good guys, it's being weaponized. Criminals are using it to make cyber attacks, well, way more effective, faster, harder to spot.
The absolute key thing here is how AI has compressed the attack cycle. Dramatically. Historically, a big hack that might take weeks, maybe months of someone manually scanning networks, researching vulnerabilities, writing scripts. Now, AI basically automates all of that. It cuts down the time between finding a weakness and actually exploiting it to almost nothing sometimes.
That speed, that automation.
Yeah.
It means the attackers can just pivot so much faster than any human security team, and the threats themselves are, like, evolving. We're seeing AI-generated malware that actually changes its own code.
Exactly. It's like a polymorphic digital pathogen, truly. It adapts, it mutates its signature constantly to try and evade detection by standard antivirus software. The kind that looks for known fingerprints.
So the old way of identifying threats, just matching signatures, it's becoming obsolete pretty fast.
It really is.
The sources mentioned a specific tool, kind of an example of this automation on steroids. Deep exploit. Can you explain what that does, why it's such a game changer for the bad guys?
Yeah. Deep exploit is terrifying because it really shows how AI can cut the human out of the loop. It can automatically scan massive networks for vulnerabilities. And then, without needing an analyst to even look at the results, it selects and launches the right exploit code to breach the system. The speed and scale, it's staggering. It could potentially manage thousands of attacks at once across totally different targets.
And it's not just breaking into networks. AI is getting really good at psychological warfare too, right? Social engineering, those phishing emails full of typos, they feel like ancient history now.
Oh, absolutely. The personalization is, well, it's incredible. AI can sift through huge amounts of data, public records, social media, maybe even internal company communications if they get access to craft these incredibly relentless phishing campaigns. It can mimic the specific writing style, the tone, even the sign-off of a company's CEO. It creates this really convincing urgency or authority.
So employees get tricked into wiring money or sharing secrets because it looks exactly like it came from the boss.
Precisely. The communication feels completely legitimate.
Okay, so if AI is that good on offense, how is the defense possibly keeping up? Is it just hopeless?
Thankfully, no. AI is just as vital on the defensive side. And in many ways, it can be smarter. The key shift is that AI-driven security systems don't just hunt for known signatures anymore. They focus on behavior. They're constantly monitoring network traffic, user actions, everything to learn what's normal for that specific environment, building a baseline.
Okay. So if I usually log in from London at 9 a.m., but suddenly my account tried to download the entire customer database at 3 a.m. from, I don't know, somewhere unexpected.
Exactly. The AI flags the behavior as anomalous. It's not looking for a piece of known malware. It's seeing activity that deviates massively from the established norm for you or that system.
That makes sense. That's the next-gen identification piece.
That's the core of it. It allows security systems to spot brand new, never-before-seen malware just by analyzing its suspicious actions. It doesn't need a prior fingerprint. That proactive approach is, well, it's where the real defense is heading.
So what does that look like in terms of an immediate response? Does it still need a human to push the button?
Increasingly, no. We're seeing systems like IBM's Curator Advisor with Watson is a good example. These AI tools don't just detect an incident. They can automatically investigate it and initiate a response, often without waiting for a human analyst. That response could be anything from instantly isolating the affected machine to blocking the malicious IP address, or even rolling back system configurations to before the attack started.
And the sources also mentioned AI helping with data protection itself. Not just guarding the network, but the data inside. which is huge for privacy compliance, too.
Yes, absolutely. AI can help enhance encryption methods, constantly evolving the algorithms to make them harder to crack. And critically, it aids in data anonymization. It can skillfully strip out personally identifiable information, names, addresses, that sort of thing, while keeping the underlying structure and value of the data intact. So businesses can still use it for analysis or training models, but without exposing individual privacy. It's this constant escalation, but defense is catching up in speed. And that brings us nicely from, external threats to the internal challenges. Because the battle isn't just about keeping bad actors out, it's also about the ethical integrity of the decisions the AI makes inside the organization. We have to talk about fairness. Transparency. This is one of AI's biggest, slipperiest ethical traps.
Right. We hear AI systems being pitched as objective, data-driven, but they're only as good or maybe as biased as the data they're trained on. So let's break down where these hidden biases actually creep in. The sources point to a few key areas: data problems, algorithm problems.
Yeah, the first and probably the most common source is just bias data. Simple as that. Imagine you're training an AI for loan applications. You feed it 10 years of historical data from a bank. A bank that, maybe unknowingly, maybe not, had systemic discrimination issues in its past lending. The AI doesn't just learn patterns, it learns and then perpetuates those human biases, often amplifying them because it applies them so efficiently and at scale.
Wow. So it's like encoding past mistakes into future decisions, and then there's algorithmic bias itself, like the math is biased.
Sort of. It's more about the design choices, how the algorithm is built. It might unintentionally assign more weight to certain factors, maybe zip code, maybe the type of school someone went to, and that ends up favoring certain groups over others, for hiring, for loan approvals, resource allocation, you name it. And the third big one is just incomplete data. The model might be missing crucial context. Think about hiring just based on a resume. The AI doesn't see soft skills, practical experience that wasn't written down perfectly. It leads to flawed decisions.
That customer service example you mentioned earlier about accents, that really hits home. If an AI is trained mostly on, say, standard American English interactions.
It might struggle with diverse accents or dialects, it might provide less helpful responses, seem dismissive, or just fail to understand the query properly. And that's not just an ethical issue, that directly impacts customer satisfaction and the bottom line.
Absolutely. Which raises the big question. If we know bias is almost inevitable, how do we even start to fix it or measure it?
Well, mitigation involves several things. Using more representative data sets is key. Actively auditing algorithms for bias before deployment. Sometimes even using specific prompts during training to tell the AI not to weigh certain sensitive attributes.
But wait, isn't high accuracy usually the main goal? If an AI gets it right 95% of the time overall, isn't that good enough for most businesses? Why fuss over complex fairness metrics?
That's a really common but dangerous assumption, because overall accuracy can easily hide really unfair outcomes for smaller subgroups within that data. A model could be 95% accurate overall, but be wrong almost every time for, say, a specific minority group.
Ah, okay. So you need more than just a top-line accuracy number.
Exactly. We need specific fairness metrics. Things like statistical parity, which checks if different groups are receiving positive outcomes at similar rates, or equal opportunity, ensuring that among qualified candidates, the selection rates are fair across groups. These metrics force us to look at how the model performs for everyone, not just on average.
That difference overall success versus equally distributed success, that feels crucial. And it connects directly to this idea of the right to explanation, right? If an AI turns you down for a loan, legally, shouldn't you know why?
You absolutely should, ethically and increasingly legally. But this is a massive technical hurdle. Many modern AI systems, especially deep learning models, operate like a black box. We can see the data that goes in, we see the decision that comes out, but the complex web of calculations in between. It can be incredibly difficult, sometimes almost impossible, even for the creators to fully explain how a specific decision was reached.
So there's a fundamental conflict. The law and ethics demand transparency, but the technology itself can be inherently opaque. That's a big problem. Okay, this is where it gets, I think, really messy. The tech is moving at lightning speed. And the law. Well, law is notoriously slow, reactive. It's struggling to keep up, especially globally.
That speed gap is a huge problem. You might have lawmakers spending, say, 2 years carefully crafting regulations for AI facial recognition, trying to ensure fairness. But by the time that law passes, the underlying AI tech has already evolved significantly, maybe in ways the law didn't even anticipate. So the regulations are potentially obsolete the day they come into effect. It creates these immediate loopholes.
And laws are usually written to address known problems. AI keeps creating totally new situations. The classic example is the self-driving car accident. Who's liable?
Exactly. Is it the person who was supposed to be monitoring? Is it the car manufacturer, the company that wrote the AI driving software, the maker of a faulty sensor? Current liability laws just weren't built for that kind of scenario.
And then you throw in the global aspect.
Oh, yeah. It multiplies the complexity massively. Imagine a U.S. company using an AI customer service bot developed in, say, France, interacting with a customer in Japan who feels they were harmed by an AI decision. Whose laws apply? U.S. French, Japanese, EU GDPR. AI ignores borders, but legal systems are very much bordered and often conflict.
Let's pivot to the fuel for all this AI data. Data control, data ownership. The sources really hammer on consent and transparency here.
They have to. At a minimum, individuals need genuine consent. A real choice about how their data is used, whether that's your voice recordings for a smart assistant or your browsing history for personalized ads. And transparency means you should be able to understand who's collecting my data, how are they using it, what decisions are being made based on it. It sounds simple, but it's often incredibly opaque.
But the ownership question goes deeper, doesn't it? Who actually owns the data used to train these models?
Yeah.
Your face template from facial recognition, your search history.
Hmm.
Is it you, the company that collected it? Does the AI itself somehow own it?
That's a huge legal gray area right now, and it leads straight into an even more complex question. Model ownership. Once an AI is trained on all that data, who owns the resulting intelligence? The learned behaviors, the insights, the predictive power? Is it the owner of the original data? The company that built the model? The company that deployed it? Controlling the model itself is becoming a critical point of contention and value.
And finally, in this legal section, the IP minefield. Generative AI, creating text, images, music. It's throwing copyright law into chaos.
Total chaos is a good way to put it. The core problem, particularly in the US, is that copyright law has traditionally required a human author. So if an AI generates a novel or a piece of art, who, if anyone, holds the copyright? Is it the person who wrote the prompt, the programmers who built the AI, or is the work simply not copyrightable at all because there wasn't sufficient human creative control? Courts are wrestling with this right now.
And this hits artists and creators right where they live. They're worried their styles, their existing works, are being scraped and used to train these models without permission or compensation.
Absolutely. It blurs the lines of originality completely. Is the AI creating something new, or is it just sophisticated mimicry, a sort of high-tech collage of existing styles?
And there's a market impact, too.
Definitely. AI can flood the market with decent quality, incredibly cheap, or even free content articles, images, music tracks that could potentially devalue the work of human creators, making it harder for them to earn a living. It's a massive disruption to creative industries. Okay, so given all this amazing potential mixed with some really serious risks, what does it actually mean for you listening to this? How do we navigate this AI world responsibly? How do we avoid these traps? I think we have to start by acknowledging one of AI's most common flaws, something you need to be aware of every time you interact with it, the tendency to hallucinate.
Hallucinate. That sounds
Right.
dramatic. What does that mean in AI terms?
It basically means the AI can be confidently wrong. It's often programmed to provide an answer, a coherent sounding answer, rather than admitting it doesn't know, especially with newer information or if it's trying to, fill in gaps in its training data. So it might present completely fabricated information, but state it with absolute certainty, making it really hard to spot unless you already know the subject.
Like that student who tries to bluff their way through an exam question they don't understand. Okay, so if AI can be confidently wrong, what's the strategy? How do you verify what it tells you?
You need a healthy dose of skepticism and a strategy of cross-validation. Never take an AI's output as the final word, especially on important topics. Treat it as a starting point. Cross-validation just means checking its claims against multiple, reliable sources, reputable websites, academic journals, actual human experts, and just apply common sense. Does this sound plausible? Does it seem too good to be true? Challenge it. Verify it.
Good advice. We also need to get better at spotting the threats that are now enhanced by AI, right? Like those super realistic phishing emails or deep fakes.
Definitely. For phishing, even though the language might be perfect now, some classic signs still apply. Look for that fake urgency, you must act, and now W. Check suspicious links or attachments. Carefully hover over links to see the actual destination URL. And any unexpected requests for personal logins or financial information should be a massive red flag, no matter how convincing the email looks. The intent is usually the giveaway.
And deep fakes. Those AI-generated videos or audio clips impersonating people, they're getting scarily good.
They are, but there are often still subtle tells, at least for now. AI can struggle with the fine details of human movement. Look for inconsistencies in facial expressions or body language that seem slightly off. Check the eyes. Sometimes blinking patterns are unnatural, too regular, or too infrequent, or the eyes might dart weirdly. Look for lips being slightly out of sync with the audio. And listen closely to the audio itself. Sometimes there's a subtle artificial quality, a lack of background noise, or strange resonance that hints at synthetic.
Okay, those are really practical tips. Lastly, for people whose jobs are increasingly touching AI, how do you stay relevant? How do you keep your skills sharp and avoid, well, being made obsolete?
It really requires ongoing, proactive effort. I'd say 4 key things. First, stay informed. You just have to dedicate time to keep up with AI developments, cybersecurity news, changes in privacy laws. It moves fast. Second, be an AI champion in your workplace. Advocate for ethical use. Push for transparency, for strong data privacy standards. Don't just let it happen to you or your company. Third, keep learning. Actively seek out courses, workshops, certifications to build practical AI skills, whether technical or strategic. And finally, team up. Collaborate. AI is too complex for silos. You need legal, technical, ethical, and business perspectives working together on projects and policies. Hashtag type tag out to the pad.
So wrapping this up, this deep dive really underscores that constant duality of AI. It's an incredible engine for productivity, for innovation, even defense. But using it effectively, safely, requires constant intelligent vigilance. We have to stay aware of the bias, the legal gray areas, the accuracy problems.
That vigilance is absolutely essential because, as our sources consistently highlight, maybe the biggest underlying tension here is that unavoidable conflict between individual privacy and the drive for technological innovation.
That's the tightrope, isn't it? If you put in really strict privacy rules too quickly, maybe you stifle beneficial AI development, like for medical breakthroughs or climate change modeling.
Right. But if you have weak safeguards, or none at all, then individuals are just incredibly vulnerable. Vulnerable to data misuse, manipulation, loss of control over their own information, their own identity.
So how do we find that balance?
Yeah.
How do policymakers, businesses, how do we achieve that critical equilibrium, protecting people while still letting beneficial AI flourish?
That's probably the defining question for the next decade of technology. Finding that balance, well, that's the crucial challenge ahead.
Something to keep digging into. Until next time.